Got dreams of being a professional podcaster, but have no idea what you're doing?
This is impossible.
That's about to change.
A new kind of school.
Welcome to the Pod School Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the show. Today, silencio. That's what I'm talking about. I know it's a little counterintuitive if you think, hold on a minute, who wants to listen to silence on a podcast? Well, nobody. But unless actually, maybe that's a lie. Maybe you could create a really cool audio experience that involves silence. Challenge is set. But silence can actually be a very important tool when you are interviewing somebody, and I will tell you why. It's for a couple of reasons. The first is, if you can, it is a good idea at all costs to avoid over-validating when you are recording audio only. What I mean by that is, as people, because we're kind, well, most of us are, have a tendency to want the person opposite to feel like we are loving what they're saying and that they are great and that we're so happy they came on our podcast and that we want to give them high fives all the time because they're delivering great content. We know our audience is going to love that. And the way that we end up doing that is by doing this. Yeah. Ah, yes. Holy heck, is that annoying to listen to when you listen back to it. If you have done a few interviews yourself and you have been guilty of this, you might have noticed this in the edit. Let me save you from the punish of listening back to yourself and thinking, shut up. It is incredibly annoying for an audience to listen to that over and over again. So where silence comes in really handy when you're interviewing people is that you want to get very good at the silent nod. Ideally, you are looking at a person that you are interviewing. If you are in person, that is obvious because you are going to be staring straight into their eyeballs. If you are recording them remotely, you are going to hopefully be using a remote recording platform with built-in video, or alternatively running Skype or Zoom at the same time that you're recording on another platform, if that's the case. But you want to be able to see the person that you're talking to so that you can have the best possible conversational chemistry, and you can also validate with your eyes and your nodding. So if my guest is talking and telling me something, I am sitting there nodding to make sure that they know I'm loving what you're saying. This is really, really interesting, but I am not laying any audio down. When you are actually in the moment, it can feel like it's weird if you're being quiet, but when you listen back, having an entirely clean section where your guest speaks and then you pick up after they're done sounds perfect. So don't be afraid to be quiet and let them speak so that you are not annoying your audience with your constant because it does get really tiring. The other way that silence is a good tool to use in an interview is to leave a bit of space when your guest is answering rather than jumping straight in with another question. What I see often with beginner podcasters is they get very nervous when they're interviewing people, and there is a tendency to want to always jump in and fill the silence. Like a second of silence is too much, too nerve-wracking, and it's like, oh God, let me ask another question. Now, one of the things about silence is that if you are okay with leaving it, and I'm not talking about 15 seconds here, I'm talking about a fraction of a second or just a small pause, it actually gives the sometimes illusion, if you're crapping yourself, of you being very in control, because nobody nervous and out of control stops down and has a slower pace. So if you can leave a bit of space before jumping on top of your interview subject, you'll often find that they might step in to fill the space with something additional. So as I said, you don't want it to be an awkwardly long pause, but just don't jump over the end of them, because sometimes they might not have finished. They might have paused and you felt uncomfortable with the pause, so you've jumped on and asked another question. In reality, they could have had something really interesting to say that you then deflect from because you've moved on with a brand new question. So don't be afraid to use silence when you are interviewing people, particularly when they are speaking. Silence is always the best thing from your end. Just give them a good nod silently and tell them they're doing a great job with your eyes. And then again, at the end of their questions, to make sure that they have absolutely gotten out everything they want to say. Hope that's helped you shut up in your interviews. Not that I mean it like that, but I listen to some interviews and I'm like, good Lord, did we listen back to this in the edit? Because my goodness, if you say one more time, I'm going to scream at myself in the privacy of my own home. If you need a little help with your podcast, please check out my online podcasting course, PodSchool, which you can find at podschool.com.au. I take you through everything from coming up with an idea all the way through to growing your audience and monetizing your show, and everything is focused on best practice. Not just this is the nuts and bolts of it, but this is how you do things professionally, because you would be surprised at the small number of changes that you can make to your podcast in your bedroom to make it sound really professional, so nobody would have a clue you were recording it in your PJs. Thanks so much for listening, and I will see you next week. Until then, happy podcasting.
That's all for today.